After college, I found myself, I'm from Mississippi, and so in Mississippi, not a lot of opportunities, so to speak. I was a biology major, and so I had a sister who lived in Houston whose husband worked for Exxon. And this was back in the mid 80s. And so the ideal was this was during the oil boom, come to Houston, get a job in the oil industry, and make all the money in the world and be set. It did not happen that way, unfortunately. I did come to Houston, and when I interviewed for Exxon, essentially, since my major was not chemistry, nor was that my focus, and I had had no other job prior, all doing high school, so that there was no experience. They said, they were looking for someone else. And so, because of that, it was like, okay, I've uprooted, come to Houston. I just need a job now. And I found myself working in Sugarland at a telephone answering service. And while working there, I need a job in my field. I need a job in my field or in the science field. So I'm at a telephone answering service with a telephone book, and I literally found myself flipping through the phone book for laboratories or places. And I was thinking medical lab, but just any laboratories that will give me an opportunity to get started. And so I came across Southwest Environmental Laboratories. Again, not totally aware that it wasn't a medical lab, although it had environmental. It was like, all right. So I just literally start calling labs to see if they had an opening. And this company told me to come in and they would interview me, come in and fill out an application. Still, I was clueless as to what I was getting into. I did not even do the research as to what type of lab it was. But I went and filled out an application, got called in for an interview, and come to find out it was a water wastewater lab. And this was the other ironic thing. Growing up in Mississippi, I did not have running water until I went to college. So water treatment, and I'm like, what the heck is water treatment? We had a cistern in which we pulled the rainwater fell in. My daddy was the one who even made the cistern. Rainwater fell in, and we simply pulled it up with a chain, and we used water that way. We had an outdoor bathroom. And so I'm like, water, wastewater treatment. I was still totally clueless. But I had gone to Mississippi Valley State. And as I said, it was during the 80s. And I went to college with a very famous rookie football player. This was like his second or so year, and he was playing with the San Francisco 49ers. And our interview actually turned into questions about Valley and questions about Jerry Rice. And I guess that built a rapport. And so essentially, Bob McDowell, he was the one who hired me. He said, come on, can you start on this particular day? And I'm like, oh, I'm in. But I'm in a field, totally have no idea what it's all about. And so it was a very steep learning curve, but I got my start in the laboratory. And when I got in, it was like, okay, I got to learn everything that I possibly can because this could be very much be a career. I kind of looked at the Eco Resources, who was the parent company of Southwest Environmental Laboratory, and looking at the company, looking around, I didn't see many people who looked like me, especially that was in leadership and meaning African American. And then to top that off, there were very few females. So there was only one other African American female that actually was a part of the company at the time. So it was like, okay. This is interesting. Maybe there could be some upward mobility here. So then it became really, what can I achieve and how can I get to the top? And so I just set my goals on. I want to be in management or mid management, to be honest. And so I just started not only doing what was necessary in the lab because there was very little mobility in the lab. The person who hired me had been the manager since the company formed. The supervisor was the same supervisor since the company formed. So it was like, okay, I don't have I don't have a path to getting there in the lab. And so that's when I started taking courses for operators. And in addition to taking those operator courses, actually cross training with operators because I saw, okay, that's the way I move up in this company. I went to work with the city of Houston. However, it was via grant. It was a 3-year grant. And so here again, my thought, okay, a bigger arena here. And so a great opportunity. And so after 3 years, the grant was renewed and then it was renewed again. And so it was 9 years in. So I'm feeling pretty confident. They're renewing this grant. You know, this is the second time. I'll probably be here until retirement. That was the thought. However, after that grant was renewed those various times, the city of Houston started looking at, maybe we can do this in-house ourselves. And then it was like, okay. So then I was, okay, I'm out again without a job. And so it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And literally, I started my own company, which was in training. Um, and that was the Environmental Training Center. And I did classes kind of on the road like every other entity that was doing these sort of classes around. And I did that, but it was so roller coaster. And what I mean by that, 1 month I would have 3 classes, the next month, no class. But it was okay because my husband had a government job and we were not stressed out. When my oldest son became of age to go to college and we started investigating college and the cost of college and all of that, it was like, okay, I need a real job that has consistent pay because he's the first one, but it was going to be bam, bam, bam with all of them in school eventually. And so that's when I started the process of looking to get back in the field on a full-time basis. And so teaching was what my love was. So I put in a few applications for teaching. Um, First round with TEKS, I didn't get accepted. I had a Class A wastewater license and a Class B water license, and they were looking for a double A for an instructor because that was the level of instructor I think that was retiring at the time. And so essentially they, explained that to me, and that just made me say, doggone it, let me go take this A because I had all of the experience. I just never had gone that route to take it because it wasn't necessary. So after being turned down the first time at TEKS, without even preparation, I put in my application to test for the A. And I actually was going to go in and say, okay, may not get it the first time, but at least I can prep next time to do a better job. I can see what the test is like. But I went in and on the first try, got it. And it was like, whoa, yes. So after that, I reapproached TEKS. It was like, okay, I got my double A now. And at that particular time, Andrew Wenzel brought me on as an adjunct. So I worked as an adjunct for about 7 months because when he was hiring to say, okay, full time, I think at that particular time, Cheeks underwent a freeze, hiring freeze. And so it was like, okay, can't bring you on full time, but as soon as this freeze is lifted, we'll see about bringing you on full time. I progressed up in this field anyway. Whenever someone turned me down for something, even at Eco Resources, it was like, okay, go get certified, go get another certification. I can do whatever you're telling me to do. I just hadn't done it because it wasn't a requirement, what have you. So the thing in this industry, it is all about the certification, the piece of paper. I came in the industry with a college degree, and unfortunately, certification holds more than the college degree. Um, and so when you think that you're being held back, you have to look inward. What do you have to offer? What do you bring to the table? What do you add to the company? And if you can see that you have all of the, oh, go get it, an effort, and you can do the manual part of it, but you don't have that piece of paper, I encourage everybody, get the certification and don't just stop with the status quo. In other words, this is all I need in order to have this particular level. Think in the future where you want to be and what you want to be doing, and let your level of certification match what your goals are. And my goal was always, okay, I want to be a change. I want to make a change. This was an industry that's not typical for women. And so I want to be that change. I want to be that face behind the gender that's not in this industry. And so, how do I get to that point? Education and certification. Given how I was raised in Mississippi, and in Mississippi, integration of the schools just happened in the 70s. And so, and we were just actually talking about that with our family Zoom meeting about a week or so ago. My brother was one of the first class to integrate the schools. And so, although schools were integrated, there was still lots of segregation between the races, so to speak. And so, coming to Houston, first job, and all I see around me, because it's a white male dominated industry, that's all I see. And we had one white female that was vice president. It was like, okay, this is strange. This is different. Why don't I see more that look like me? And yes, you had several laborers that were Black, but they were doing what they were doing when they were first hired, and it was like there was no progression whatsoever. And that I won't say that it disturbed me. It motivated me to kind of break the glass ceiling with Eco, because that was my own. I had tunnel vision, and I saw myself at Eco Resources until I retired. So it was about being the first Black female and being a Black and being a part of management. Was it difficult? As I said, there was one other African American female who did not have a degree. I had a degree. Um, she had been there at that time, probably 10 years prior to me being hired on. But because I had a degree and I had a boss who did not like doing meetings, because a private company, we did board meetings. And from time to time, they will ask the lab to come in to explain what was going on. I had a very shy boss who was also female. She was the supervisor, the manager was male. She didn't like talking. I was one, it was like, okay, I can talk. And so, in essence, the mud districts that were predominantly Black, guess who got the opportunity to go in and speak to them? So I saw it as ECO using me. And I said, because they used me and I could see what was going on. It's like, okay, you're not pulling the wool over my eyes, giving me an opportunity. I'm going to use the platform that you give me in order to move up also. And so by having the opportunity to go in to explain tests and the reason why this is a violation and the reason why you're in enforcement, because in some of these cases, they went into enforcement with TCEQ. That gave me the opportunity to be seen by other people. And one of the opportunities, the vice president was at the meeting because ECO was about to lose the mud district. And I had to do a presentation, and he did a presentation for the company. And when he heard me, it was like, okay, I got a call within a few weeks as to, okay, we want you to start cross training for client relations manager. And so this was another, wasn't a real title that I was given, but at that point, it was no longer just sending me to the board meetings that were predominantly Black boards, but it was like, okay, we can kind of broaden the horizon here and send you into other meetings also. Wonderful field to be in. Without water, there is no life. And so it is not a field that's going to make you rich by no means, but it is a field that brings lots of pride in what you do because what you do is life, providing water, potable water. And it was even more evident 2 weeks ago when the winter storm came through, and it's like, okay, Bessie, you're in water. You have no water. So it reiterated for me the importance of clean water. But I must admit also, it was not as traumatic for me going through that because of how I grew up uh, with the outdoor toilet. So it was like, this is making me think about how I grew up and bringing back those memories. So it made me, oh gosh, I can handle it. So it wasn't, it was like, okay, another obstacle to just hang in there. This too will pass. We'll get back to where we are. And so after the water started flowing again, then it was like, okay, is it safe to drink? And I was actually in class last week, which was the week after the winter storm. And I actually had students coming up, and these are classes that teach students. Bessie, we had a boil water notice. When can we start using the water again? These are people that are in the industry. And it's like, okay, we are providing a wonderful service to teach with the education. Even these people that had their C and B level, these are real questions that they are questioning, and they work in the industry. So it's like, yeah, once that boil water notice is lifted, this is what all has happened. This is how many days have already transpired. So you're good to go once they give you. So providing the insight, and I'm talking as far as the teaching, the education part is so crucial, not just to people in our industry, but people outside the industry. And I was able to be a valuable resource to family members, to my neighbors, as far as the water goes, also in that regard. So as far as an industry, it is an industry that has stood the test of time. Water, wastewater treatment will be here forever. So if you want a career, this is the industry that you can kind of go into and be the superhero that you always dreamed of being. When the pressure drop and during the storm, because the pressure drop, when the pressure drops below 35 psi, there is a possibility of contaminants being drawn into the water. So when the pressure drops, when the chlorine is below the level that is allowed by state and federal government, or when the BACT test comes back positive that there's organic or bacteria in the water, then you boil your water to eliminate those organic matter or the bacteria that may be present. And when I say eliminate it, you're going to kill them with a high temperature so they don't cause havoc. They don't cause diseases like cholera and things like that. So the boiled water is because we don't know what's happening at that water at that time. We have no guarantee that that water meets the potable water definition. So boil your water to inactivate those bugs or kill them so you can drink the water safely.